Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching me. My name is Pam Morass. I'm president of the International Union of Psychological Science, and I'm pleased to be chairing and deconvening this symposium for the International Union of Psychological Science on the integration of psychological science into solutions to global problems. As well as being president, I'm also Emeritus Professor of Social and Educational Psychology at the University of Greenwich. I've just got one slide here. If people want references, they can get in touch with me. It's just to illustrate something, and that is that psychology has utility and it's complex. This is just a slide, an anonymous slide, of a plots prepared by our colleagues in geography or geographical sciences of young people in an area in a country. And we were able to use these plots to identify young people, but then to actually work with them and undertake research with them in terms of their attitudes, their behaviour, their emotion, their friends and things like that, in order to look at providing advice for government on services for children with behaviour problems. So enough of me. Back to the International Union of Psychological Science, or IUPsyS as its acronym is. IUPsyS is the global voice of psychology. We have national members that represent over 2 million psychologists worldwide. Our power is in the ability to be able to convene information from those psychologists and those national members, but also in our power of collaboration. For example, with the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and the International Science Council, and of course CoData, who are part organisers of this International Data Week. Our community of regional members is listed here, and as you can see, they stretch across the globe. Our mission is psychology for science and humanity, and the obvious place to look and think about that is in the UN Global Development Goals, in a chart that very many of you will have seen numerous times. But psychology applies to many of these goals. For example, mental health in terms of Goal 3, education in terms of Goal 4, and gender equality in terms of Goal 5, but also as a partner in allowing other sciences to implement interventions that may need behavioural involvement. Psychology is a scientific discipline. It recognises the importance of practice and context. And I must stop here and say that the delivery of psychological services by practitioners is central to the International Union of Psychological Science. We are a union of science, but we actually have practice at our core. Psychology is about human behaviour, brain, thinking, learning, emotion and mental health, and many other areas. But a main point to think about when we're thinking about psychology is we have an ethical framework and academic and professional competences and standards that inform both our delivery of services and our research. We're a science, and our methods have empirical rigour. We're a STEM subject and always have been. Replicability and generalisability are central to the gathering of data, and indeed one of our speakers will say something about that, and I'll talk a little bit about it later. But we look at individuals, groups and population levels in terms of our looking at our science. We also have the skills to lead and collaborate with other disciplines and indeed to advise governments. The International Union of Psychological Sciences has resources, and if you'd like to look at these, you can go to our website. Two examples of those that are relevant, I think, to the current situations going on in the world are our COVID-19 response resources. There's a link here, and our resources on emergency situations, which at the moment we're adding to in relation to the current situation in Ukraine, but actually they apply more broadly to emergency situations across the globe. We adhere to the notion of open science, and again one of our speakers will mention open science in his talk. And we were involved with the International Science Council in responding to the UNESCO initiative on a statement for open science. Two things, though, to remember, and they are very important to IUPsyS. First is that we believe there should be equity of contribution and access to outputs generated by higher income countries, and that has funding implications for the ability of scientists in low and middle-income countries to contribute. That is, those in low and middle-income countries should be able to contribute as well as to receive science. In 2021, we held a symposium on open science, and you can find a video of that on our website, which will be put up shortly. We also adhere to the International Science Council initiative on the principle of universality of science and freedom of responsibility of science. We believe in the free movement and association, expression and communication for scientists, and in equitable opportunities for access to science and its benefits, access to data, information and research material. And to that end, we oppose any discrimination on the basis of such factors as ethnic origin, religion, citizenship, language, political stance, gender, sex, sexual orientation, or age. So to this symposium. The symposium about psychological science serving humanity. We drawing on data from psychological science that addresses issues of global significance and data to improve our social world in 4 very, very different papers. Germán Gutiérrez will be the first speaker, who will talk about global collaboration projects and some information that he believes is important for us to consider when we're thinking about behavioural science as representing the globe. Carrie Kogan and with Geoffrey Reed will then talk about their work on ICD-11, the International Classification of Diseases, developed by the World Health Organization, in which they were both involved in collecting very large data sets. Our next speaker is Susan Mickey, who will talk about COVID-19 and how data was drawn together to be able to advise both the British government but other governments on trust, engagement and behaviour of citizens who are required to carry out or behave in certain ways in order to address the outcomes of COVID-19. Our final speaker is Kevin Durheim, who will use his collection of big data to show how we can study the polarisation and the language of opinion-based groups. And I think he will also draw on in that talk the notion of vaxxers and anti-vaxxers in relation to COVID-19. All very different papers. Different because we want you to see or have a glimpse of the kinds of things that psychologists do. We'll end the symposium with some questions and discussion. I'm not going to go into the backgrounds of these very eminent speakers, but you can see those on the abstract for this symposium. And I don't want to take any time reading it out when you can actually read it. We've recorded the actual talks, mainly so that there's no interruption in your viewing of them, so that you can enjoy them and view them. But we are all here and we will be available to answer questions and have discussion at the end of this symposium. So without more ado, I'll ask Germán Gutiérrez to start his paper on comparative psychology, and I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you at the end of the symposium. Thank you very much.